Welcome back. I'm Felix, and I am reacting to 5 cold cases that were solved with twist. I kept wanting to say with a twist. They just put with twist. I'm not sure why. I don't think I've ever watched anything from this channel. Criminal Core. I just felt like watching a mystery. So let's see what happened in these mysteries. Looks like there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Is that right? 5? 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, this one's long. Wonder why some are longer than others. But I'm just rambling. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and let's solve some mysteries, or let's see how the mystery is solved with a twist.
A serial perpetrator already serving 2 life sentences was sentenced for a 2005 Battle Creek cold case. On June 12, 2005, 21-year-old Ashley Marie Parlier got into an argument with her parents about her pregnancy and left their Battle Creek, Michigan home. She never came back. Her pregnancy, 21-year-old cold case. On June 12, 2005, 21-year-old Ashley Marie Parlier got into an argument with her parents about her pregnancy and left their Battle Creek, Michigan home. She never came back. The detectives focused on her father as a suspect early on in the investigation.
He just looks creepy. I know we shouldn't judge, but I'm judging. He looks creepy. I'm sure people think I look creepy, but he just screams creepy. And she doesn't look too enthusiastic to be standing there.
The police questioned friends and her boyfriend, but never found enough evidence to make an arrest, and the case went cold. The unknown took a toll on Ashley's family over the years. Both her parents passed away in 2020, before the break.
Okay, I'm looking at myself in the camera, and my seat dropped. Give me a second to fix it. And I think my camera, did I hit my camera? Okay, I gotta get a better setup.
Through in the case came 16 years after the crime, in 2021. Harold Hallman was arrested and interviewed regarding the end of 2 Pennsylvania women. During this questioning, Hallman admitted to ending the life of Ashley. Hallman has confessed to knocking Ashley unconscious during an argument before he struck her over the head with a piece of wood and buried her body in a wooded area in Newton Township. Hallman said, "I panicked and put her in the back of my car, drove her into a wooded area and put her there, and struck her a few times to make sure she would not regain consciousness." The family believes that she was pregnant with Hallman's child. Nicole Campen described her sister as a loving, caring person, but said she had the mind of a 12-year-old, something she says Hallman took advantage of. Nicole told Hallman the following in court, before the judge read his sentence. "You took the life of my sister, but you ended so much more. You stole a piece of us every day since the day she went missing." Emily Corbin and Tasha Feaster came from Pennsylvania to support Nicole. Hallman also took the life of Emily's sister, Erica Schultz, and Tasha's sister, Tiana Phillips. Tasha said of Nicole's family, "They need to know that I am here for them, that I know how they feel, and together we will make it through it." Emily said, "I think the most important for the 3 of us is that the light of our sisters keeps shining." In April 2023, 44-year-old Hallman, who was already serving 2 life sentences, was sentenced to 37.5 to 60 years in prison. Nicole said, "For me, the biggest closure is my father is no longer looked at as a suspect. We have a name. We have an answer." While Hallman has promised to lead police to Ashley's body a number of times, that has yet to happen. Nicole said that enough is enough, even if her sister's body is never found. Nicole said, "He is not showing them. It is almost like he gets to have a day out in the sun. My sister does not get that ever again." Asked by the judge if he had anything to say, Hallman simply answered, "No."
Those 3 girls all kind of had the same similar look, to them. I wonder if he had a type that he went after.
A man who ended the life of an 87-year-old woman was sentenced after pleading guilty in the 1987 cold case. nearly 2 decades after an innocent man was exonerated. On August 13, 1987, 87-year-old Edna Loffman was beaten, indecently assaulted, and suffocated in her home in Oxford Township, Pennsylvania. She was suffocated with pills that was forced down her throat. The police were initially looking for a stranger that was seen walking through backyards in the area that day. But in 1988, the police arrested and local prosecutors convicted the wrong man. 24-year-old.
Every time I hear that, it's like a lot of times you discover it's because the police and the prosecutors took shortcuts instead of actually investigating this. They're like, we got someone for it, let's just run with it. A lot of times they actually don't care.
Old Barry Loffman was a distant relative of the victim. He spent 16 years languishing behind bars for a crime he did not commit. The wrongly convicted man had an IQ of 70 and was said to be functioning at the level of a 10-year-old. Multiple discrepancies between Barry's confession and the evidence found at the scene of the crime scene were pointed out by investigative journalist Peter Shellum, who wrote a series about Edna's demise and Barry's conviction for the Patriot News. Peter's pioneering work, including reporting an apparently coerced confession, ultimately led law enforcement to use improved DNA testing techniques. Peter then tracked down the original biological evidence samples, which were believed to have been lost but were actually turned over to defense attorneys. The defense attorneys then sent them to a Penn State professor, but never followed up when the professor requested comparative samples. The professor, then teaching in Germany, still had them. Those test results showed that Barry was not and could not be the perpetrator. In 2000,
the ball was dropped so many different, so many times. It's not like even his defense attorneys didn't care. It's like, Jesus. All people have to do is do their job. This man could have been free a long time ago.
2003, he was released, and in 2004, he was officially exonerated. Adams County District Attorney Brian Sinnott said, "There was a somewhat questionable confession from the original suspect. According to the district attorney, the police made an audio recording of the confession. Instead of asking and answering full questions, the police told Barry what they believed, and he gave one-word replies." Sinnott said, "I do not think any reputable police agency would use that technique today." Several weeks after the crime, Pennsylvania State Police Trooper Jack Holtz interrogated Barry and told him that a fingerprint found on a cigarette pack in the victim's house had a whorl pattern. Holtz then showed Barry that he had a whorl pattern on his right index finger. Holtz failed to mention to Barry that approximately 30% of all human fingerprint patterns are whorls, that fingerprint examiners do not rely on gross patterns like whorls to make identifications. Also, the chance of any person having at least one whorl pattern on their 10 fingers was high, and the fact that Barry had a whorl pattern on one finger was entirely unsurprising and almost valueless in connecting him to the crime.
This is what I was saying earlier. They really didn't care. They had someone and they just ran with it.
Barry then confessed that he ended Edna's life on August 12th, but her neighbor reported seeing her on August 13th in her yard. Peter passed away in 2009 after 23 years as a Patriot News reporter, but in 2018, more than 3 decades after the crime, with DNA tracing technology having improved, the authorities sent the samples that Peter had tracked down to a genealogy lab. The investigators learned that Edna Loffman's life had been ended by someone with the family name of Loffman or Spielman. Further investigation determined that Christopher Spielman previously lived next door to Edna about a decade before her end. On May 18, 2021, Spielman first spoke with the police. He initially said that he knew nothing about Edna's demise or that Barry had been charged with the crime. He also denied having a relationship with Edna, but gave the police a key clue when he said that he was a chronic smoker. The top of a Marlboro box was found near the crime scene. Multiple cigarette butts were found in different rooms inside the victim's home. And investigators would learn the victim did not smoke. Spielman agreed to provide his DNA to investigators to prove his innocence. It was a match for the perpetrators. He was arrested in July 2021. He was told the test results and confessed to his role in the long, cold case. He also said he acted alone. On June 22nd, 2023, 59-year-old
He does not look good. He's not going to... I think he might do better in prison because they control your food and stuff. But he does not look good there.
Christopher Spielman was sentenced to 25 to 50 years in prison by Adams County Judge Thomas Campbell. He pleaded guilty to 1 count each in the 3rd degree and burglary, and no contest to 1 count of indecent assault. The plea and sentencing, which happened quickly, put a cap on a decades-long mystery and miscarriage of justice. Sinnott said, "Today's plea and sentence finally brings a conclusion to this unique case. Were it not for the exhaustive efforts of investigators and others involved in the genealogy research."
Actually, if it wasn't for that reporter that passed away, none of this would be happening.
In this case, the victim's family may never have received any measure of closure for this remarkably heinous and violent attack on their loved one. He added, "It is obvious to see that years of effort went into finally unmasking this cowardly perpetrator of an 87-year-old woman who was able to hide behind his actions for so many years, while another languished away in prison for the crime Spielman ultimately committed." Sinnott said in the press release, "No case of which I am aware proves the relentless efforts of law enforcement in justly and honestly apprehending and holding those accountable for the crimes they commit. No passage of time will stop the pursuit of justice for victims and to hold those accountable for the crimes they commit. Spielman will not be eligible for parole until 2046.
That's not that far away. How much time? So, was it 2018? Did he only get 20 years? Or 25 years? Take someone's life, you get a slap on the wrist.
A case that was only cold for a short while would end in a guilty plea and a life sentence. In 2019, Bobby Lynn Moose, a mother of 2 from Nelson House, Manitoba, Canada, disappeared. She was last seen on October 1st when she was dropped off by her sister at the Thompson Walmart. Her body was found in an industrial area of the northern city more than 2 weeks later. She was wearing a coat, but her leggings were pulled down and her underwear was ripped. An autopsy found multiple abrasions and contusions on her head and face, a skull fracture around her eye, and at least 3 brain bleeds that caused extensive swelling and, ultimately, her end. Despite the best efforts of the detectives, the case went cold, but only for a short while. In 2021, 53-year-old Jack Clarence Flett was arrested. His parents, both residential school survivors, were unable to show love, said Flett's defense lawyer Saul Simmons, and he was abused by family members. Flett turned to intoxicants to numb the pain.
Is there no picture of him? Did they show a picture of the victim? I don't think they showed anyone's pictures.
However, he could become violent when he was under the influence. Crown attorney Brent Davidson said, "Bobby's end is a prime example of his violence while drinking, but a tragic background, as Mr. Flett has, does not excuse the crime." He added, "The actions perpetrated by Mr. Flett were vicious and were callous, and she suffered greatly while fighting for her life." Although Flett was originally charged with first degree, the Crown and defense attorneys agreed to a manslaughter charge, which Flett pleaded guilty to. Part of the reason behind the lesser charge is the fact that the only evidence linking Flett to the crime was his DNA, which the court heard was voluntarily given. However, Davidson cast doubt on that because Flett's blood sugar may have been low at the time he was asked to give his DNA, which could have affected his decision-making. He was also asked to look at a form outlining what could be done with his DNA, but he has impaired vision and may not have been able to read it. Flett was also not told while his interview was being...
Jeez. If you... I'll give the cops some leeway on this. They may not have known all that stuff about him that he had issues with his blood sugar and how bad his vision was. But still, you got to make sure all your T's are crossed and I's are dotted.
Recorded that his DNA would be compared against the samples found on Bobby and at the crime scene. The police stated that he was informed of this off camera. Davidson said that if the DNA evidence was cast out by the court, Flett could have walked free. He said, if it had been excluded, there was no case, there was no prosecution, there would be no life sentence, there would be no justice at all. The Crown and defense also considered the lesser charge because of Flett's upbringing, which was marred by neglect and abuse. On January 16, 2023, Flett was sentenced to life in prison with no possibility of parole for 7 years. Bobby's sisters continue to grieve and are heartbroken by the loss. Cindy Linklater said the following in her victim impact statement. She did not deserve to endure all the horrible things that happened to her that night. To you, Jack Clarence Flett, I accepted that you plead guilty and I am sorry for what happened, but I do not know if I can forgive you. Maybe you can ask the Lord Jesus to forgive you. Another sister, Diane Moose, wrote of Bobby's kindness in her victim impact statement. She was a good mother, a good sister, a good cousin, a good friend. Bobby will be in our hearts always as she was loved. Flett has been in prison for 1.5 years awaiting sentencing, so he is eligible to apply for parole in 5.5 years. Family members expressed fears for their safety when Flett is released in their victim impact statements. Davidson said that there is no guarantee Flett will be released then, as that is up to the Parole Board of Canada. The judge urged Flett to get help for his problems.
Yeah, this story seems familiar. I may have watched a similar story. I don't recall him saying like what was going on. May have to look it up just to see.
Judge Gerald Chartier said, "You really need to avail yourself. Use whatever resources you can get while you serve your sentence to try to grapple with these serious problems that you have and that you have inherited."
Are you ready for retirement? Our free retirement planner shows you where you stand now.
After stalking her pastor, a woman admitted that she ended the life of a friend whom she had a relationship built on substance use. The relationship came to a bloody end one night in 2004. At 6:30 on the morning of April 28, 2004, 48-year-old Tommy Hope's friends, Cindy Christensen and Brian Norton, went to check on him at his home in Camdenton, Missouri. No one had heard from Tommy in several days, which was unusual. After knocking on Tommy's door and getting no answer, Cindy crawled through a window. Inside, she found Tommy. He was lying deceased on the floor in a pool of blood. They went to a friend's home and called 911. Brian told the 911 dispatcher the following. He is lying face down, but then there's blood on the carpet and stuff too, right around his face area. Like, he has been bleeding from his head. Camdenton Police Chief Jeff Beauchamp said,
Sorry, that was just weird the way he was recanting the 911 story.
Walked over to the body, and at that point, I could see that his shirt was soaked with blood. There was also the stiffening of the body. He has obviously laid there for some time. Luminol uncovered bloody footprints leading to a window. Prints were also found on the window frame, where the suspect had exited the home. An autopsy revealed that Tommy lost his life from 8 stab wounds to his torso and left arm and had a laceration on his neck. The medical examiner determined he had passed away 3 or 4 days earlier, either on the night of April 24th or the morning of April 25th. Tommy D. Hope was born in 1955 and grew up in Texas as one of 3 siblings. Abandoned by their parents for days at a time, the Hope children were eventually put into foster care. His friend, Brenda McCabe, said, "There was a lot of abuse in these foster care homes. He was neglected. He was beaten." As soon as he was old enough, Tommy joined the military. He left in his 20s and worked odd jobs to make ends meet. By his early 40s, he was living in Camdenton, where he made plenty of friends from the local bar scene. Tommy's friends told the investigators that he used substances as a means to cope with the traumas he suffered in his youth and while in the military. Chief Beauchamp said, "He always had some substances, mainly user amounts, and people would come over and party together and use Tom's substances."
You know, I was just thinking about the friends that came to his house. I guess even drugged out people check on each other. But it sounded like most of his friends were from the bar or drugs. It's drugged friends, depending on the drug. Like a lot of times, there's the recreational drug use friends. They seem to be all right, but friends from the street, those usually don't go well.
There was a variety. Another friend, Patricia Strauss, told the investigators that Tommy had recently been seeing a married woman named Clara Rector. Her husband, Jason, knew about the relationship and did not like it. Patricia said, "Tom told me just a few days before he was ended that Jason had made a threat for him to stay away from Clara or..."
Oh, she's trying to throw off suspicion.
Sorry. Clara was born in 1976 in California, and like Tommy, had been removed from a dysfunctional home as a child. She was later adopted and moved with her new family to the Lake of the Ozarks. At 19, Clara married, but her first husband passed away in a car accident soon after she learned she was pregnant. In the aftermath of his demise, she began using substances and eventually married Jason Rector, with whom she had 2 children. Jason and Clara were regular substance users, but Jason ultimately got sober, while Clara still struggled with addiction. In Tommy, Clara found someone who could relate to what she had been through and a willing substance buddy. She would leave Jason and move in with Tommy before going to rehab in 2003 and reconciling with her husband. Clara admitted to the investigators that she had not been able to maintain her sobriety. Behind Jason's back, she would sneak off to do substances with Tommy. Investigators spoke to Jason, who was upfront about his dislike for Tommy.
Okay. So, I'm so confused right now. I don't know why I'm so confused. I think I'm tired and I lost track of the story. But, so was that Patricia they showed at the beginning? Because they showed that woman's face. I forgot the name of the person they showed. So they're questioning Jason because of Patricia. Sound like Jason got clean. Oh, I get why Jason didn't like the relationship. I mean, 1, they're together, and 2, they're using. So there's that.
He blamed him for his wife's substance use and admitted he had warned him to stay away from her. Prosecutor Brian Keaty said, when they interviewed him, he said, "I did not do it, but I am glad he is deceased." Both Jason and Clara were each other's alibis, claiming that they were with each other the entire time the crime against Tommy took place. With no evidence or new leads, the case went nowhere. 9 years would pass without an arrest. In April 2013, then Camden County Sheriff's Office Lieutenant Scott Hines.
Okay, so that was this Claire. Claire is the married one. I think that's where I got confused. So Claire's the married one, Jason's the husband, and then there's Patricia. Yeah, I don't know why my brain got confused on that.
Was called to Camdenton Bible Baptist Church. Pastor Jerry Sousley told Hines he was being stalked by a fellow congregant named Clara Rector. Sousley claimed that Clara had been sending him messages regarding inappropriate matters of a sexual nature. These included messages left on his car windshield and a notebook she left him, in which she detailed her fantasies about him. After rebuffing her advances, Clara lashed out. Sousley said, "She said, 'Jerry, if you tell the law what you know about me, I will destroy you. I will effing destroy you.'" Clara was referring to a prior counseling session with the pastor, where she admitted to ending the life of a man. Sousley became concerned about the safety of himself and his family. Sousley told the detectives, "She started telling me about how she had left Jason and the kids, and started doing substances, and got mixed back up with this guy. and she just kind of put her head down and said, "And I ended him." Sousley implored Clara to go to the...
A lot of times, I think they've changed the rules on that. Like if someone confesses to a crime, that they're now supposed to say something. So in this case, he definitely needed to say something.
And admit what had happened, but she refused. On April 21st, 2013, 36-year-old Clara was taken into custody and charged with harassment and stalking. The detectives who worked the case of Tommy were brought in to question her. After discussing her current case, they pivoted back to the events of 2004. She seemed relieved to confess. Clara told the detectives, "I snuck out of my house in the middle of the night because I really wanted to get high." When Clara arrived at Tommy's home, he would not let her in at first, so she crawled in through the window. After Tommy and Clara used up his dwindling supply of substances, they got in a fight. Clara said that she grabbed a butcher knife and jumped
Okay, so they were showing Clara. Okay.
on Tommy's back and cut his throat. Then she continued stabbing him. Clara told the detectives, "I started like, 'I hate you, I hate you.' And he was standing there against the wall, and then he was like, 'You know, I think you are ending me. I think I am losing my life.' And he just fell over." Clara explained that she took the knife and Tommy's wallet and fled out the window. When she got home, Jason was waiting. After hearing what had happened, he helped her dispose of any incriminating evidence.
Oh.
Clara and Jason Rector were arrested on April 24th, 9 years to the day of Tommy Hope's crime.
Jason, you should have just turned her in. Marriage wasn't worth saving. I know some married couples will do all kinds of stuff for each other, but if my wife comes home covered in blood, it's like, yeah, we need to get you a lawyer, and I am not helping you cover this crime up.
Clara was charged with first-degree slaying and armed criminal action, while Jason was charged with felony tampering with physical evidence. The charges against Jason were ultimately dropped as the statute of limitations had run out on them. On November 10th, 2014, Clara was sentenced to 15 years in prison. Clara credited her Christian faith for giving her the strength to conquer her addiction. She wrote the following on her Christian blog, where she warns of the dangers of substance use. "I believe that Jesus lost his life on the cross for the redemption of all people, even me." But while she successfully ended her addiction, she eventually ended up in prison for taking the life of Tommy Hope.
Actually, I think taking his life is what got her sober. I always think it's interesting people find God after they commit some kind of horrific crime. Why can't you have found it first to not commit the crime?
In DNA analysis, authorities in the South Bay have solved a cold case of a security guard in Sunnyvale after more than 4 decades. On October 27, 1979, 18-year-old Elena Estella Mina was guarding an office building on the 400 block of Deghini Drive in Santa Clara County, California. She was stabbed multiple times during an attempted indecent assault. The suspect fled when an office worker interrupted the attack. In the years following the crime, there were no leads and the case went cold. Until 43 years later, when in October 2022, the DNA profile was submitted for forensic investigative genealogy. A new lead was developed and the source of the blood at the scene was positively identified. However, investigators were able to eliminate that individual from suspicion in the case. Then in October 2023, a DNA analysis by the Santa Clara County Crime Lab of blood found on the victim's clothing and shoes was linked to Samuel Silva. Silva's DNA had been collected and uploaded to the CODIS National DNA Database in 2006. He was also 18 at the time of the crime and had been staying with family in Santa Clara County and may have met Elena while they worked at Great America. He fled back to Colorado afterwards. Silva passed away in 2008 while in prison on federal gun charges. The authorities said that he had a lengthy criminal history, which included manslaughter, attempted slaying, assault with a weapon, and
That's a person that should have just stayed in jail. There are times where I think they should have just kept that person in jail, and he's definitely one of them.
indecent assault, along with firearms offenses. District Attorney Jeff Rosen said in a statement, There is no statute of limitations on taking a life or our attention. We never forget. We do not forget the crime or the criminals. We do not forget the victims, ever. Detective Matthew Hutchison said that there were tears at Elena's family home when he broke the news that he had found their daughter's perpetrator.
Yeah, but he's already dead. It's like, Jesus. Well, at least he died in prison. But, yeah, there were some interesting stories. The one, was it the first one with the daughter, the 22-year-old? Yeah, the first one. And the sister told me she had the mind of a 12-year-old. Sometimes, actually, could have been, I was, like I said, judging the dad at the beginning. But that would explain why the daughter didn't look too happy to be standing there, even though she may legally be adult, sometimes the mentality of people don't age. And that's why I said all those women kind of had the same look to them. And I kind of wonder if they also had the same kind of IQ that he was able to take advantage of them. That was interesting. I'll leave a link for the video if you want to go back and watch it without me interrupting. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and everyone take care. Later.